NetChoice, which represents Pinterest, Reddit, X, YouTube, Meta, and others, is now suing to block a Colorado law that would require pop-up warnings for underage users about the impact of scrolling on their social media platforms. Joining me this morning with more on this lawsuit is our 9 News legal expert, Whitney Traylor. Whitney, good morning.
Good morning, Jordan.
Okay, so who exactly is suing here?
Right. So NetChoice, as you mentioned, is this nonprofit trade association that's representing a number of major corporations, as you just mentioned. And there's, I think, probably 20 or 30 actual companies that they represent. And so NetChoice is the plaintiff, and they're saying, hey, this new bill is impacting our trade association, essentially, and so they're stepping in on behalf, and they're suing the state of Colorado. They named Phil Weiser in his official capacity, but that's because he's the attorney general.
What are they suing for?
Yeah, so essentially they want equitable relief. So when you sue, you can get legal damages, which is money, or equitable relief, and that's what they're trying to do here. And they're saying, hey, we want to prevent this bill from going into effect, which is supposed to be January 1 of 2026, where they all have to essentially put this pop-up message that says if somebody's online, if somebody under 18 is online for more than an hour in a 24-hour time span, this message has to come up saying the harms of social media. Or if they're on between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., every 30 minutes, this message must come up from these website providers. And they're saying, hey, you're compelling us to speak. That's a First Amendment violation, because the First Amendment says, hey, the government can't restrict speech except in certain circumstances, but it also can't force you to say something. And that's their argument, is that the government's compelling us to do so.
Now, from a legal standpoint, though, aren't there health warnings on a lot of other products? Would this fall under that same category?
That's a great point. And just a few weeks ago, we did a segment on the case here in Colorado where the gas stove manufacturers had to put a label on, and they're challenging it on the same claim, saying you're compelling us to say speech that we disagree with. So both of those cases, I would suspect, they're very similar in terms of the legal argument. I would suspect a similar result in both cases.
Okay, this is really interesting because we've been covering this, and we've heard, it's kind of a bipartisan bill here.
Yes.
This is something that both sides of the political aisle have said they want.
Yep.
What are the arguments for and then against, which you've highlighted a few of them just now, but what are more of those arguments?
Yeah, so the proponents of this, and it was a bipartisan bill, are saying that, hey, the studies show that social media use is harmful to youth's mental health. They're saying that the majority of Coloradans, they cited to a poll, the vast majority of Coloradans agree with the fact that this social media use is harming these youth, and so they're arguing that, hey, we should be able to do it because it's a public health issue. That's the proponents of this bill. Now, those who are against it are saying this is unconstitutional. It's a First Amendment violation. It's a power grab. And they're also questioning those studies. And they cited to the Surgeon General, who said, well, it needs more study. And so they're also pushing back on these studies that show that there is risk to the mental health of the youth.
Now, to be clear here, this isn't the only lawsuit that we're seeing like this of its kind. We're seeing other ones across the country, too.
All over the country. And NetChoice is behind it. And if you go to their website, they actually have a litigation update site where they show all the different lawsuits that they filed. And some of them they've been successful in. A lot of them, they've been able to get a preliminary injunction where what they're trying to do here, prevent the law from going into effect. And interestingly, just 3 weeks ago, the Supreme Court ruled, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that this Mississippi law that required age verification could be upheld. So that could serve as precedent as well. But this issue is being litigated across the country.
So then what happens next with this case?
So they just filed the complaint, I think, August 14th. So the AG, the state of Colorado, has a month, has 30 days to respond. So they'll respond, but there'll be a hearing relatively quickly on the preliminary injunction, because this law is supposed to go into effect January 1 of 2026. So they're saying, hey, we got to figure this out beforehand, because if it's unconstitutional, we won't have to do that. So I suspect there'll be a hearing within the next month or so.
All right, well, we will find out. Whitney, thank you very much for giving us more context. We appreciate it.
Good to be.